Good afternoon. This is the Delaware County Interactive Gaming Revenue Authority meeting for November 17th, 2022 at 2 o'clock, and we are starting approximately 2:06 p.m. I call this meeting to order. Please join me and to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, we'll take a roll call from our Secretary, Ron Evans.
I can see that all 5 board members are here, and our solicitor is also here.
Thank you. All of you should have received the agenda approximately 5 days in advance of this meeting, 5 to 7 days in advance of this meeting. Any questions or comments about the agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, agenda's approved. At this time, we will open the meeting for public comment concerning the agenda. Seeing none, we will proceed. All of you should have received the minutes from our secretary for the October 2022 DeSigra meeting. Are there any comments or questions? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Minutes are approved. All right, we're going to skip down a little bit. We are waiting for some guest presentations, and we're going to skip down to the treasurer's report. Mr. Stefan Roots.
Yes, Treasurer's Report for November 2022. We have a balance today in our account, $164,077.83. There were $37,362.50 in checks paid this last period. We did receive our quarterly gaming funds allotment of $94,219.76. That came in on November 3rd after the October statement closed out. 2 checks cleared, and we have no outstanding checks, so a pretty clean treasurer's report this month.
Yes, noted that the difference between the ending balance on October 31st and the current bank balance on November 17th is the exact amount of the $94,000 deposit. Makes it easy when there are no outstanding checks.
I kept looking, I said, this is a first.
Other
It was a first.
Well, you know what? I did want to say this. In actuality, we do have an outstanding check because we made a check presentation on Monday, but I said, you know what? It was so close to the day, we're not going to say that we have an outstanding check. So,
But it's not in the, it's not in your records and it's not in the bank records.
correct. So,
And we had no expenses for the month either. That's what it looks like. All right, cool. Do you recall, I don't have that in front of me, the total of I do have the 17 grants were $32,246,000. And then I think the arts funds grants, did they total up to be 30?
yes,
Those 3 organizations? Because I don't have that in
maybe
front
10
of me.
each.
Okay, so that's about
Well,
$62,000 that will be cashed that will be deposited over the next month or 2.
Cashed and withdrawn from the account.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I just wanted everyone to kind of have an idea of where we are. So essentially, other than other expenses, we'll still have about $100,000. Oh,
Somewhere between,
yeah.
At least
okay.
50. At least 50.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's see here.
which is substantially less than we started the last year
Right,
with.
right.
Because we started the last year with, I don't have it in front of me. Do I have it in front of me?
I think that's
We
what's
started
on
the
other
year
tab.
with 150,000.
Okay.
So we're gonna end the year with somewhere between 50 and 100, but obligations.
Right. All right, I make a motion to approve the November 2022 Treasurers Report.
So moved.
All those, any questions or comments? All those in,
Any second.
Second?
oh, I made the motion. She
You're
seconded.
right, I seconded it. I
Yeah, she seconded.
apologize.
Yeah, I made the motion. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, Treasurer's report is carried. Please proceed.
And asking for a motion to authorize the treasurer to pay invoice of $368.
No, that's different. Just a second.
253.46.
Oh, $253.46.
Because the 116 was a different vendor?
Yes,
Okay.
if you've noticed, I have quite a number of ads in the estate section, and that 115 is one of those estates.
I second the motion.
For 253.46.
253.46. Yes.
The 115 is a mistake?
Yes.
Yes, and I did adjust the minute. I did adjust the agenda. I thought I sent it to everyone. I
We
think
might
I
have
did.
we might have printed out the
Yeah.
original.
It has an R at the end of the name for revision. And the revised agenda with the correct amount is on our website.
Excellent.
Yeah, sure. All right, any questions or comments? All those in favor of approving this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion approved. All right, at this time, I'll turn it over to the solicitor.
Just
For
two
any
matters.
items?
One having to do with the Daily Times invoice. They bill it to my account for my firm. I have asked them to give DeSigra its own account. They don't do it. So that's how you end up seeing some of my things on there. Next month is December, and that means we have to do the ad for when our meetings will be for next year. As I recall, I had assistance with that last year. I welcome it again. And we'll have it to be on the agenda for next month's authorization, and then we'll put the ad in before the end of the year.
Yeah, I had a comment of that for new business, not a motion item, but more of a discussion, and then do we approve the calendar? Or do I just authorize you to publish the
The
dates?
board approves the calendar.
Okay.
And then I advertise it.
Okay, so we need to make a motion to approve the calendar and a motion for you to advertise the
Correct.
calendar. Okay,
And can we approve that calendar at our December meeting?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll volunteer to come up with a tentative schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Frank, our solicitor? Frank Dale?
Thanks for keeping us up on the schedule.
Yes, thank you. Also, can I go back to Stefan? I think you were going to say something about the audit as far as it being available, because I don't think that was mentioned at our last meeting.
Oh, no. So the audit report is online on our website,
Wonderful.
and there was a slight design change to accommodate the agenda. And if I recall, the treasurer reports, which I'm going to add, they're a few months behind. They were showing up in two places. I just forget what the tabs were that they were showing up. So you'll find that whatever the old tab or the new tab, annual reports, I don't remember the names, but
Right.
we have one place for treasurer's reports, and I believe it's annual reports is where the audit report is sitting.
I would recommend removing all the financial reports for the period ending with the audit. At the end of the year, the audit should be up there and any ensuing financial reports for this year, but I would not have every month's
month.
report and the audit. The audit is the financial reports for the whole year. That's our obligation to share. Otherwise, you get into, why is this number different from that number? I mean, the audited financials are the audited
They're
financials.
a definitive record.
Right,
Certified
right.
by the audit professionals. I
Right.
think that makes sense if everybody's.
I mean, the fact that we're putting up the monthly treasure reports is a lot more than most organizations would do.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. But we are an open and transparent organization, which I
Yeah,
appreciate
absolutely,
from everybody
absolutely.
here.
Yes, yes.
So our audit ended December
31st.
31st, 21. So anything beyond that, we're saying we're moving, I think.
Anything older than that,
Older.
yeah.
So anything
Over
in,
itself.
anything in
Right.
December, anything in the year of 2021 or 2020.
Gotcha.
You can remove those.
Okay.
Yeah. And then when we approve the audit in 2022,
You'll
or
remove the
next year for
21s.
2022, you can
You're right.
remove the 2022 monthly treasurer reports. Okay. All right, thank you. So let's move on to old business. I will provide an update on our emergency services grant round number 2.
And so if we approve the 2 grants that are,
I'm not at that yet.
right, I'm just wondering how much is left in the, oh, you share it, okay.
So I had an opportunity to present at the Radnor Fire Company of Wayne last night. It was pretty fun. They were excited to see me. In fact, I had another meeting before that, and they let me use their Wi-Fi, so it was very convenient. So, as a reminder, our emergency services grant is for first responders, fire companies, fire departments, police departments, and nonprofit ambulance companies for mostly community outreach, so they can continue to build the bonds with the community. And the grants are up to $2,500 per emergency entity. We have a deadline for that grant up to December 31st, 2022. The first round of the grant, which was the fourth quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year, we distributed $51,934.93. The second round of this grant for the third quarter of this year was $51,934.93. I will discuss a motion later on to approve a grant now, just because of timeliness. But before our approval today, the total emergency services grants are $84,181.10. So I'll provide more information when we get to the motions on the emergency services grants when we get to new business. Any questions about emergency services grants? Okay. All right, let's move on to the 2022 Arts and Culture Fund update. And I will allow Ron or Francis to provide input.
Well, we have a few more motions on the agenda for later on.
And that fund is $80,000 total, correct?
Yes, that was, yes.
What was approved.
And before today, before we consider these today, we've approved 30,000 so far.
Right.
Okay.
And today's would add up to another 20,000 or so, a little short of 20,000, making it almost 50,000.
Okay. And okay.
So I think I just checked this morning and we don't have any more requests besides the Chester Exchange that
Right.
that was mentioned in the email.
So I did not include them on the agenda as far as a motion. I know you're updating that spreadsheet, but I'm also going in to look at them, and I think I got to that one before you're able to update the spreadsheet with the Chester Exchange. They had a very extensive application, but I didn't see anything related to the goals of this grant.
Right.
As far as arts and culture, it was kind of a little bit all over the place, but it didn't really align with this this grant. So that's why I didn't put it on there. If others want to review it and you see an aspect, please let me know, and we can put it on the agenda for next month. But I didn't see anything that related to this grant.
And I think you agreed
I did,
Stefan?
yes.
Well, is it too late to put it on the agenda for a decline? Or do you want to have a conversation with them first?
I and Ron will notify them that the purpose of the grant. I'll
Okay,
send them a notification and then I'll put the motion on at the next meeting.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And in that email, we'll notify them of the Next Generation grant. If and when it may be possible again, because that's something that they can consider. Okay. All right. Also, Stefan and I had the privilege of presenting to the Upper Darby Arts and Education Fund on Tuesday. That was pretty interesting and fun at the Drexelbrook Holiday Inn Drexelbrook
Oh,
facility.
no, that's
Yeah.
great.
It
Good.
took us through this back road, Fern Boulevard.
Oh, yeah, it's
Yeah, to
tricky.
get there, we were trying to figure out how we were going to get out of there or get there.
Have you never
And it
been
was
to
rain.
Drexelbrook?
I've been there, but I've never been through that
Really?
back. I've never been through that
Oh
back.
my
that,
God,
that,
I practically
that
live there.
entrance.
If it's not there, it's a Springfield Country Club.
Yeah,
I'm shocked you've never been there.
I've
Wow.
seen the Chester High School proms have been there over several years. I don't know if they still do, but I had never been there. I had no idea where it was.
It
And
has
when I
a-
saw it, I was like, wow. look at this.
It is the largest event venue in the county.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it has a whole history that I'm happy to share with you another time.
I saw pictures of the swimming pool.
Yes.
That's a whole story too.
All right. Any questions on the Arts and Culture Fund? Okay. Let's move forward. The following motions are for 2022 grants for 3 entities in Delaware County via our 2022 Arts and Culture Fund for a total of $19,650. We've previously approved grants for $30,000, which will bring the new total to $49,650 if these grants are approved. These grants have a focus on arts and culture. These are awarded on a rolling basis up to $80,000 total for the entire fund. I make a motion to approve a $4,650 grant for Mainline Art Center. All of these are subject to county council approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Motion to approve $5,000 grant for Orchestra Concordia Association. Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions? Comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carried. Motion to approve $10,000 grant for a Sharon Hill Art and Cultural Commission. Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second? Questions, comments?
I just have a question.
Sure.
I mean, this grant is more than the other two combined. We're pretty comfortable with the application and,
I looked at it. It's
It's
very
good. A lot of
it's very
activities.
expansive
It's
and
a
very aspirational compared to their previous activity. But I looked at the application. It seemed fine to me.
They, it's the same size grant as we gave for Upper Darby and the Hedgerow.
This is the max.
Right, it's the maximum amount. And they have a whole calendar of events that are all arts and culture, community related. They do regular jazz fair, community fair events.
no, I mean,
So, yeah, it was I thought it was a decent proposal.
I often have been talking about capacity building, and I'm happy to have us support the aspirations and best intentions of these organizations. Upper Darby Arts and Education Foundation and Hedgerow have
Long histories, yeah.
decades and decades of track record and footprint of influence behind them. So in some ways, I mean, they're continuing to improve and grow their offerings. So we're supporting their aspirations as well. I just wanted to make sure. I mean, I have some familiarity with Sharon Hill's program.
Right.
And I think it's great to support it. I just wanted to make sure that we were doing it eyes wide open. Yeah.
Yes, it is certainly a large grant for them, for their size.
That's
Having
another-
said that, we also have said that we want our grants to go to the most under-resourced communities in the county. And that certainly is an under-resourced community, as opposed to the Mainline Arts Center or,
several other
well, wait a
ones.
minute, I think they're wonderful and I think we
Yeah.
should be funding them and that's what they asked for and they're getting the full amount they asked for. I do think we need to just keep that in the back of our minds because the reason they have such a small budget is because they're in an under-resourced community. And this is an opportunity for them to get a grant size that they would normally not be able to get.
No,
So,
absolutely. And you have a chicken and an egg problem, right? An
That's right.
organization who's never been given an opportunity to
That's right.
administer a grant of this size.
yeah,
So I think it's great, actually, in that sense. Let's give them the chance. Hopefully they do well with it and they can leverage that experience, both with us and other funders, to say, hey, we can handle,
we can do even more.
So I think that's fair, but I feel very good about that conversation that we just had.
Yeah, I appreciate you having the conversation. I had the opportunity to go to one of their events. I think it was September, October. It was a Saturday, and I had a long list of things that I was doing that day, and I said I'll pop over. And even it started at like 9, and I got there at 4. It was ending at 5, and it was still relatively lively at 4 o'clock with 42-degree weather.
That's great.
And there was a spry young man, about 82 years old, up there dancing near the gazebo
Nice.
to the jazz music.
Great.
And it was a fun experience. I had some food, and it was just,
That's great.
you know, even for that time of day, it was still well attended. And the other thing about this is it's more of a government entity rather than a nonprofit to a certain extent. It's kind of a blend. So I think that this supports that community. And also, because of where they are, there's a lot of smaller municipalities around them that are more likely to attend, that may also attend their events.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Like I think they had a wreath crafting event last Saturday. And when I saw the pictures, it looked like it was well attended. So I think they're
Great.
doing well.
Good for them.
But thank you for the conversation. It's something that we need to have. All right, so do we have a second? I think we do have a second.
I'll be a second,
All right,
sure.
okay. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Okay. The following motions are for 2022 grants for one emergency services organization in Delaware County via our emergency services grant second round for a total of $2,500 in November 22, with a focus on community outreach and/or recruitment. This is in addition to the first round of this grant of $51,934.93 distributed, and the second round of this grant of $32,246.17 awarded and essentially going to be distributed after I sign the checks and we put them in the mail. Motion to approve $2,500 grant for City of Chester Bureau of Fire, subject to county council approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Solicitor, as we always do, just want to confirm there's no conflict of interest in my vote here.
Yeah, the only conflict would be if you are receiving direct remuneration. There's no money coming to you as far as I can tell, so you have no conflict.
Now, if I see you riding on a rider bike a little bit later on, then no. And I just want to make a comment. I moved this up because of the timeliness. So this is going to go to help the children of Chester with a toy drive. And so they need the money now rather than getting the money in February of next year. So I moved this one up. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. I do have a motion. It's a suggestion. We'll see where it goes. But We do have one more application as of today for the emergency services grant that when I add this one and the other one, it's probably going to be close to $90,000. If I don't know what we're going to get between now and December 31st, but whatever the balance is of the difference between whatever we approve and $100,000, I'd like to support emergency entities across the county. And the Salvation Army for Delaware County Mobile Canteen Unit provides a service at essentially disasters or catastrophes or fire emergencies to support the first responders as well as those that are affected by those emergencies. So my motion is for any remaining funds in the $100,000 emergency services grant that we would provide the difference to them in a grant. So the official motion is motion for unused funds after December 31st, 2022 for grant making purposes to Salvation Army for Delaware County Mobile Canteen Unit.
For emergency services, grant making
Yes,
purposes.
emergency
I'm happy to second that.
services. Questions or comments?
What do we anticipate that to be, provided we don't have any other?
Approximately 10,000.
I think it's brilliant.
I've
It benefits everybody.
exhausted, we have the ad. I've reached out to fire chiefs, organizations, and local fire companies and departments, as well as the police departments. There should be no reason that people aren't aware that this exists.
Yeah, I don't, do we have any, questions or concerns, legal or otherwise, about the Salvation Army's religious affiliations and our grant-making purposes? And do we have, yeah, let's start with that.
I don't think so, because we've provided grants to Episcopal Community Services. We've provided
YMCA.
grants to, YMCA. We've provided grants to the church, the church that's helping the Ukrainian refugees.
Have we done city team?
We have not
Not
received
yet.
an application
haven't
for
asked.
city team.
Not yet.
But I understand your question. I think of this as a very discrete project that they happen to run. It's really almost an adjunct of the county's emergency services. Like if you have conversations with county emergency services staff, this canteen unit is brought to the disaster areas to provide food for the first responders and food for the people who are the victims of fire. And it's not at their
outreach.
site. There's no staff there giving you and doing any sort of proselytizing or
Witnessing.
evangelical, LGBTQ stuff. There's none of that within their canteen unit. So I think as long as it's very clear in all the documentation that this is funding that is restricted to this specific project,
Correct.
I feel comfortable with it.
Okay.
So if like an apartment building has a fire and all of a sudden people need to find someplace else to live, they'll show up with some food and blankets maybe, or
Right,
some
at the
advice-
actual-
advice
yeah.
on how to find alternative housing for.
Well, that's more the Red Cross and the county staff, but theirs is the food
Okay.
and coffee and all of that. That's my understanding
Blankets, I think,
based on,
just temporary stuff until they transition over to Red Cross or other organizations that help displace them. And the good thing about it is they service the first responders as well as the victims right there, during the emergency. Yeah.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Again, I think it's a healthy and important conversation for us to have, and I like the fact that it has that relationship to emergency services, so it makes sense with the entire body of the grant making program. The second question that I didn't quite formulate was kind of preemptively answered by Francis in that it fundamentally supports the county's emergency outreach, because that, my second question was going to be, do we have something that is fundamentally supporting something that the county is
Already doing, yeah.
doing?
No.
I was thinking, and this isn't as emergency related, but what came to my mind was the county gave a grant to create a rapid rehousing shelter for people experiencing homelessness. And so it's something that they've already invested in. We did have that conversation about future grants to libraries and libraries that the county. So I was just trying to think,
Yeah.
are we in a vein, are we on a line that is supporting something that they're already doing? And so I think the answer to that is yes, with
They're-
this grant.
Yeah.
Right, and I thought of this because technically, from what our solicitors told us, is the county is a municipality, and technically we could fund the county, even though the county is giving us the authorization to distribute the gaming revenue. And I thought that this entity is county-wide, has a relationship with the county, but is not technically the county. So instead of giving it to the sheriff's department or the district attorney's department, not that we might not do that in the future, this has a distinct separation, but relationship with the county.
No,
And would support all emergency services organizations within the county.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, and you know know me well enough, or getting to know me well enough. I like to understand the context and the thought process.
Right.
So I appreciate it. Yeah.
I appreciate the questions too. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay. All right. I don't know if our guests are coming.
I just got a message from Deputy Chief Gallagher. He is somewhere
In the
in
building.
the courthouse, so I don't know if it's appropriate, but if I step away for
Sure.
I might be able to find him.
Okay. Should we proceed with it? I'll let you start with the budget, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay.
So Vince and I had a good conversation a few days ago. We had worked up a budget that, where we wanted to also look at cash flow at the same time. And so we were looking at, do you want to share with me?
Oh, others.
You don't need to. We were looking at forecasting at least 90,000 in each quarter. We don't know if that's going to be the amount. Is it going to be more? Could it be potentially less, depending on betting season? We just don't have any way of knowing. So assuming we start out the year with 52, which is what I'm forecasting based on our commitments, could be more if all the grants don't go out the door. We're looking at income of 360. I then looked at all of our operating expenses, and Stefan, you may notice something I'm missing. The audit is 8,600, as you recall. Is that what we spent on the audit? It's okay if you don't remember, but that's
92 comes to mind, but we're in the same ballpark.
okay.
I'll-
Okay.
I'll relook at that.
Yeah, if you don't mind taking a look at the operating expenses and just making sure that I didn't miss something. So that leaves us with, we thought, approximately $350,000 to give out in grants, so that we would end the year with less than we started the year, but not much less. And so we've structured the conversation in 4 parts. Forget about the dollar amounts to begin with. The first question that Vince and I wanted to ask is, do you want to recommit to giving grants for emergency services, number 1, next generation, i.e. children's and youth serving organizations, and arts and culture grants? So we don't need to move this now, but are those 3 groups of grants that you would like to continue to give money to?
I would like to continue emergency services grants. I feel that next generation in arts and culture, from what I'm seeing from the arts and culture right now, most of them seem to be youth-based. So I'm wondering if we can blend those two together, next gen and youth. Next gen and arts and culture. Right now, from what I'm seeing, some are open for all ages, but I think out of the five, like three of them were mostly youth oriented. But so for example, Orchestra Concordia Association, when I looked at their website, it's an orchestra of adults, and they provide free
Concerts for
performances,
kids.
concerts for everybody. So you're kind of benefiting everybody. Sharon Hill has youth activities, but they also have things that are open to all ages. So I'm just thinking of not to say that arts and culture isn't a worthy cause. I think that could be blended under the youth, because I think there's some other dire concerns.
So are you saying you would not have a separate arts and culture grants?
That's me.
And you would only fund arts and culture for young people? I think of the arts as such an economic driver in some of our communities.
And I think of culture as more of a non-youth.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
area.
Yeah.
Although we didn't get any,
Oh, they found us.
Can we suspend this discussion temporarily?
Yes,
I'm gonna
yes,
suspend this
absolutely, 100%.
discussion temporarily. And does anyone have any time commitments? Because I do want to watch the clock.
Yeah, I do need to get out of here by 3:30 at the latest.
Okay, all right. I will be very careful. So thank you to our special guest. I want to welcome Chief Edward Mashevsky. I think I'm saying his name right. We've met before. And also Chief Edward Machevsky from Eddystone Police Department.
Yes, sir.
And Deputy Chief Dennis Gallagher from the Upper Darby Township Fire Department. As you may both be aware, we established an emergency services grant through DeSigra, where we get tax revenue from Harris Chester that comes through Harrisburg back to the county, authorized by county council, and we distribute it among emergency services entities in the county. You're receiving a check shortly, because your chief has applied and you're going to get one, and you've received one in the past.
Yes.
And we were having a conversation about this and just trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing and kind of reimagining the purposes of the grant, the use of the grant. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk. Chief Machevsky, you did something very innovative with your department. I think you're either the only one or one of the only departments in the county that has a statewide, is it statewide or national accreditation or certification?
PLEAC, which is Pennsylvania Chiefs of Police Association accreditation.
Right. And I think you're the only one or one of the only
Well,
ones.
I thought I went on the website like a month ago and I saw other townships. Maybe it was something different. There was like
So,
Marple and Radnor
yes.
and
Okay.
Ryanstown. Maybe it's just
So
off the top of
in
my head.
Delaware County, there is out of 47 departments, there's only 7 that are accredited.
Okay, yeah.
We're the only borough that is
Oh,
accredited.
Oh, okay. All right.
Now, the only borough in Delaware County, not across the state. There's, I think, 4 other boroughs across the state. And I have some talking points about that.
So I'm gonna let you.
Want me to get started?
Yes, get
All right,
started.
so, does everyone kind of understand what the reason why there would be accreditation, or what is accreditation within itself within the police departments?
We know what accreditation
You know what
is.
accreditation is.
Can you give us the name of the accreditation
So the
organization?
accreditation that we seeked out was PLEAC, through the Pennsylvania Chief of Police Association.
Okay.
It's also the same one that the other departments in Delaware County have applied for. So basically, the benefits of accreditation is, as a police chief, you have several smaller departments. Basically, your police chief runs under what your chief thinks is the best practices for the police department and what the chief thinks is the best services for the community. So when you're accredited, it does some other things. So the first thing is it establishes a credible framework for evaluating agencies' practices and procedures. I'm not someone that micromanages. I talk to my supervisor, talk to my staff when I'm developing policies and procedures. But accreditation makes you do that. They make you set up a workflow, and it goes through more than one person. It goes through a board of people such as yourself. It reduces agencies' risk and exposure to lawsuits. It decreases liability insurance and expenditures. It truly does. Our department, I think, got 14% off our risk management and liability from A.J. Gallagher once we became accredited. It really does improve law enforcement community relations. I'm going to tell you, I hardly get any citizen complaints anymore.
Now,
It's
why
a
would
big
that
step.
be? I mean,
Well, I'm gonna tell you
there's
why.
gotta be a connection between accreditation and that.
So accreditation makes you operate which perceived to be the best practices in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I have practices from all the way up to every procedure that an officer follows, and there's a check system that verifies that officer did all those proper things. So if someone were to come in and they were to make an accusation about an officer, there is an investigation that gets done, but our policies and procedures direct that officer to do the right thing, and what's perceived to be the right thing. So the officer, say the officer were to arrest someone, and say that officer finished all his paperwork, whatever, and the next day that person comes up and complains to me and says this officer did this. It could be a misunderstanding of information. It could be the officer did something wrong. It could be the officer didn't do something wrong. But by following those procedures and following the officer's paperwork, I can see what was done, what wasn't done, and was it done properly or not done properly. So as a complainant, I can sit down and go over all these videos and paperwork, say this is what happened when you get arrested, and this is the whole procedure.
Oh, that sounds great.
And it also verifies that if we arrest someone for one thing, arrest someone for another thing, everyone's treated equal and fairly exactly the same way. There's no skips, there's no steps. Such as evidence collection. Our evidence collection is very streamlined. It's always being looked at. It's always being managed. You know, I'm going to be honest with you. Before I got credit, you went in my evidence department, and you were an attorney. You'd probably eat me up in a case. You know. Now everything is very categorized. There's accountability for everything. It's just a cleaner and more transparent process. Anyone can come in and see how my department operates. And I'll explain that a little bit more as we move on for us. It enlarges the outlook and viewpoints for a manager. Once again, it's not one person making all those decisions. It's a collaborative effort. Furnishes a solid foundation for agency to build upon for further progress. It extends agency accountability to public and elected officials. Enhances planning innovation activities by all agency personnel. It develops and improves methods for providing services to the community. It also encourages problem-solving activities within the agency. Now, since 2001, 375 agencies in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have applied for the PLEAC program. That's 33.52% roughly. 149 agencies out of the 1,107 PA law enforcement agencies maintain PLEAC accreditation status. So the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is roughly 13.34% of police departments have this accreditation.
That's not good.
Is it a new thing?
No, it started in 2001. So
Wow.
in Delaware County, 7 out of the 42 Delaware County police departments are PLEAC accredited. It's roughly 16.6%. So that's the goal as the Board of Police Chiefs are trying to, you can't push someone to go accredited. So in order for accreditation to work, the police administration has to want it and have to see the need for it.
Yeah.
2, you need to have your local politicians on board, your mayor, your council people, because it's a joint. It's between the police department and local government, saying that we're going to agree to try to do the right thing and operate on our best practices. And that requires one big thing, funding. So you have to acquire the funding. And then you have to have your staff to buy in. If your people on your staff don't believe in the system and the cause, you're going to have an uphill battle. In my situation, once I realized this is what I wanted to do, and I think this is where you need to be in policing, at a staff meeting. All my guys are sitting at a table, I said, we're gonna seek accreditation, this is what accreditation is, this is accreditation values, and they all just kinda stared at me, right? One of the officers spoke up and said, what does this mean for us? This means we're gonna be operating at best practices, we're doing our job, and we're holding the gold standard of policing, that's what I want. Everyone bought in. So for us, when you do accreditation, there's a three-step approach. Once you decide that that is what you wanna do through PLEAC, you send a letter of intent to PA Police Chiefs. So it's a $500 fee for that letter. Unless you're a member, such as I, it's only $250. So then you get the 139 best practices that are perceived to be best practices of points of policing. You do a self-assessment. Am I meeting these goals? What policies do I have to change to meet these goals? What do I have to do to get there? Now, some departments, they elect to do it all in-house. So that means that you're paying your staff, full-time staff, to manage these aspects of accreditation for you. The paperwork, make sure workflows go through, everybody's on the same page, everything gets done on time, everything's filed correctly. Or you can elect to hire a consultant group. I elected to hire a consultant group to walk me through the process. The consultant group cost us to start at $30,000. They came in, and myself, my team, and the consultant group, and I did appoint an accreditation manager who is one of my full-time officers who I give one administrative day a week to make sure everything's being done for the size of my department, it's about proper, right? I have 13 officers right now, so it works for me. After you do your self-assessment and you get yourself ready, you get your building ready, your policies ready, you file all the proofs. You gotta show proofs each year that these 139 points of policing are being met, and they're being met on a consistent basis. Then the Chief of Police Association for the state appoints a 3-person panel. That basically, they come to your station, you hand the keys over to your station for 2 or 3 days, and they go through your computer system, they walk through the station, they go through your records, they do ride-alongs with your officers, and they speak to members of the community. At the end of that process, they come back to you and they give you feedback. We don't like this policy, you're not following this policy the way it's intended to follow, those types of things. Luckily, when we went through, we had flying colors. We had one issue, and it was an old ordinance that should have been adopted in like 1980 that wasn't adopted by council. So I had to run down to the president of council's office, have her draft a letter, and she would have this run through by the next council meeting. We went to the PA State Convention and received our accreditation. So, you know, one of the things that's important about accreditation, and I believe, is that policing has, when I started policing in 1996, and this is my own experience, I'm not speaking for the other chiefs. In 1996, when I started policing didn't change much. Policing always kind of stayed the same. Little subtleties, but not much. 2022, policing is a very, very fluid profession. It changes constantly. So you gotta constantly, you know, look at things, reassess things, threat assessment of things. Am I doing things the right way? What can I do to do things better? You know what I mean? Accreditation pushes you to do that. There's a standard in place that I'm not creating, but it holds me to a standard, to my community and to my department. Accreditation was received well within our community. We had a little announcement at a council meeting. I have an open door policy. Some of the residents would come in and ask me about it, and I've explained what the benefits to them would be, the benefits to me, what it would be. And it seems to be working well for us. And my officers, when you're accredited, to let everyone know you're accredited, well, the officers wear a little band like this. Every one of our cars has an accreditation seal on it. Every document we send out from the department has the accreditation seal on it. And my officers have a great deal of pride in the work that they do.
Yeah, it's really a credit to you, Chief, and to your mayor and the other elected leaders in Eddystone, because as you can see, it costs money, right? So you have to have the wherewithal to invest in the accreditation. And then you have to have the buy-in, and there's fear sometimes. Oh, does this mean that we're losing control of our police department by having to adopt these best practices? So it really is a credit to you and to your mayor and the elected leaders in Eddystone to be willing to push through both of those obstacles, either one of which could easily stop a process like this. And it works on both ends of the spectrum. If you are a moderate size or a smaller size municipality, you get a lot of access to information and resources and ever-changing things that can be difficult to keep up with. And if you're a larger department, the process of scaling your operation is incredibly difficult. Training one officer, relatively simple. Making sure that 133 officers are all on the same page and operating according to best practices, very difficult. Accreditation is a huge help. So it's a huge help for larger departments achieving scale. It's a huge help for other departments achieving resources. So I do think it's something very important for us to encourage when we're thinking about how we do these emergency grants.
So in our department, I told you what a consultant firm costs and what the initial setup is, but before I start accreditation, there's all these like urban legends that were horror stories. Like my building was built in the 50s. You'll never get your building to meet standards. And it really comes down to thinking outside the box. Now my department is very fortunate. We got awarded a RAC P last year, and we're constructing a new building. So I sweated out my
Nice.
first inspection, but my next inspection I will have a more modern building to deal with. But we had to do some things. One of the things is you need a lockable server cabinet, right? $2,000. I didn't want to spend $2,000. I can tell you the server that has all my interest, and you're gonna laugh, is I went to Walmart and I bought a dog crate and I put a padlock on it and I bolted it to the floor. It met
Brilliant.
It
Met the
met the
requirements.
security features, but I spent $30 instead of $3,000. And you're gonna laugh.
Love it.
It
Love
worked.
It works.
Some of the other things was I used to share an office with the mayor, but because you have JNet and you have my dog cage that everybody laughs at, and some of the other aspects of personnel folders, the mayor can't sit in that room with you unless someone's with him. And we don't have the space to give him his own work, so he's been doing work on his own in the council chambers and different places. So you just got to work with things, and that's all. You can find a cheap solution to get you by.
So, Chief, first of all, I love that you're doing this. I run the Foundation for Delaware County, and we have staff in the Baldwin Building, so
Okay,
right there in
excellent,
Eddystone.
yes.
And we're accredited by the Council on Foundations as a community foundation, and we have to go through a whole process and paperwork galore, and we have a seal that's on everything. And so what you did, I think, is a
Understand what
little
I'm saying,
bit more different level, but in terms of the risk that for us, it's reputational risk. For you, it's a lot more significant. Tell us a little bit about what you think is deterring. Are there other municipalities in Delaware County that are considering doing this or are in the process of doing it? What's your understanding of what's
So
going
someone
on?
said, no, thanks, we don't want to be involved in that.
Well, I think there's a lot to take in when you make this decision, right? So Dave Spling from Another Providence, he's the president of the Pennsylvania Chiefs Association. We haven't had a local chief up at that level in a while. He got his accreditation the summer before we did, and he's been advocating trying to get other departments. He's actually one of the chiefs that kind of like solidified my belief that this is what we need to do. So at meetings, we tell the other chiefs, hey, we'll help you. Come to our department, we'll show you what we did to overcome this hurdle and that. But I think to some chiefs is, A, they may not have the participation or the relationship with the government parties to do it. B, they may have that relationship, but they don't have the money to do it. Sometimes I said there was a lot of horror stories about accreditation that I found not to be true that some people may still believe in. And then you also got to remember, you take $30,000 and you say, well, that's what I'm going to pay for my consultant firm. But if you're a small police department,
That's
at the
a
end
lot
of
of
the day,
money.
that's a police car under co-stars. And if your fleet isn't running, the accreditation means nothing to you because you're not providing a service to the residents.
Sure.
You're really not. And there's probably some other issues, I think some older chiefs might say, hey, I'm out next year, do I really wanna go through this? You know, let the next guy deal with it. So, there's many variables there, many dynamics to overcome.
Yeah. And I can say, I mean, we are in the process in Upper
Oh,
Darby.
good. Good.
So we hope to be accredited by the end of next year. And just given the size of our department, that percentage number in the county will take a nice jump if and when we're successful in achieving it. And I know that Superintendent Bernhardt has also
Yep.
become an advocate for the process. So we're hoping to keep the dominoes going.
So,
Yeah.
so I'll add upon that where I've heard other chiefs, they're starting the process, they're starting that talk. And that's a really big step, taking that step is starting to talk, and they're starting to talk. I was talking to Chief Vice today in my meeting earlier, from Brookhaven, he started the process in Brookhaven.
Right.
So they could be the next borough that choose.
They're starting to talk to the mayor and the council.
They
to
actually
try to get
hired
them
the
on.
consultant from.
Oh,
Nice.
Right.
And I can tell you that the CID here is starting to seek accreditation. I was talking to Chief Nolan today at my meeting also.
Excellent.
And actually, we're using the same consulting firm.
What about media?
I have not heard anything from media. I haven't been to media since Marty recently left, so
Yes.
I don't know what their plan is there.
Swarthmore?
Last I talked to Ray said that they had talks about, but they're looking at they had some hurdles they have to go over first. So, I mean, I don't know.
And Chief Vice is, their police department's a recipient of the emergency
yes.
grant, yeah.
So I mean, like, and there's just a lot to it. There is, and if you're a chief, you got to think of a lot of things. Like, do I do the accreditation or do I buy body cameras? Sometimes that's a decision you have to make. I elected to become accredited first, then get the body cameras because I'm operating at best practices. I'm throwing the cameras in there instead of worrying about getting the cameras working and not working at best practice, right?
Would you say that that's another need, because now you have accreditation going forward, as we keep this emergency services grant open, what would be some of your other needs or other needs of other departments across the
So,
county?
you know, if you could help out, if the department was going for accreditation, like I said, perhaps they have the consultant group covered, maybe they need a piece of equipment, or that they remodel something that might be $2,000. That might be a reason to put in, for funding, for consideration, correct?
So accreditation.
But maybe
support.
we say that we will only entertain proposals from departments that are either accredited or in the process of accreditation.
Yes.
And that's our incentive too. I think that's one of the ways that funders really, they tie a
Yes,
grant to
right.
performance of some kind or some,
So
no.
I like that
The
idea.
other thing I would say is if, a department was to say, and I'm just spitballing, I don't know the needs of every department in Delaware County, but say a department was gonna go for body cameras, correct? And maybe they can get the body cameras, but now they gotta buy a new server for $2,000 or $3,000.
They certainly do.
It'd be the same thing, you know what I mean? If you can tie that all into.
I see what you're saying. In other words, they need the server to
Yeah.
get accreditation, or they
Well,
need
not
the
to,
tools.
not create,
Just so
made
the
it one
body
for the
cameras
body
will work.
cameras.
Body cameras
To
create
show the
a tremendous
public.
amount of
Not
data
yet.
and.
Right.
Yeah, the body
require
camera's showing
bandwidth.
people you're doing the right thing or
Got
monitoring,
it.
yes.
We could also buy everybody a dog crate.
Yes, well, yeah, I might sell them when I
That's some
retire,
bucks.
make a couple bucks, right? I'll market them, put a little special gadget on there. But those are the things, and a lot of departments, like I said, are having them talks, and, my mayor has come back to me and told me some of the political events he has been to, people have commented on him about the accreditation status, and that they were starting their talks about it.
Good, that's great.
So I think it's something, you're gonna see that 16.6% go up in Delaware County. I know, just from talking and knowing the chiefs for this county. And then if you did look at it, if you wanna take a positive from it, the whole state's at 13%, right? Delaware County's at 16, so we're doing better than the state standard. We're getting there. It's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
I mean, the accreditation process itself can take up to 13, 14 months. You gotta decide you wanna do the program, you gotta see what the program's like, and you gotta start adapting to it. Now, your department is going into it, and I can tell you, as a chief, I started out looking at, every day, we use a system called Power DMS to electronically, handle your files for you. and everybody gets a to-do list, and when you start and you're the chief, your to-do list is twice everybody else's, right? And every day you're sitting there just to-do list, getting things right, moving things where they need to go. Another key component to accreditation is training, that we use this Power DMS for. So we could have a change in a policy, and instead of getting people together to make sure everybody understands the policy, we can electronically send that policy to each officer and make up a 10, 15 question test just to make sure they read and understand it. If we have a training or I want a message to go out, I can videotape the training and send it to each officer. I can see when they've seen it, when they completed it, who's completed, who hasn't completed, and I can set deadlines for it. This is a message, you must address this training in the next 5 days or whatever. And now all my training files are together. So if I do end up with a lawsuit, I say, okay, well, here's all my training data. Email it right over to them.
Smart.
I'm not hiding anything. My records are an open book. Come and check them out.
I have two quick questions, because I know you have to go, and I want to
Yeah.
make sure we get to you. So we provided a grant for, I believe, up to $2,500 to you, as well as other police departments. Is that valuable to you? And also, we feel like we're not getting a lot of response from police departments and EMS. Is the amount too small, or what do we need to do
Well,
to get more buy-in, I guess?
I can tell you any amount is beneficial to a department, right? But $2,500 does limit to you what you could use with that money.
Okay.
I would say, even like some of our outreach programs, like one of the things you got to remember is like something that may work in my town, might not work in your town, but something that works really good in your town might not work as well in your town, right? So you gotta get out and you gotta find out, and the only way you find out what's going on in your community is to do things. So one of the biggest ways, one of the biggest things I do to cost no money, where I can kind of figure out what's going on, is every day, and we've done this probably for the last 15 years before I was chief, is one officer, we call it like school patrol or playground patrol. They walk to school every school day, and they're there for safety. But they're they're communicating to all the parents, and they're hearing what the parents' needs or concerns are. It might be traffic on their street, it might be they heard a noise last night, want to know what's going on. And we're interacting with the children, and we're interacting with the staff, and we're getting feedback. And that works so well for us. Last summer, the kids all come in, then at the beginning of the day, they all come into a T. And it's either myself or another officer always sits at the T with the principal and make sure no adults enter the school at that point. That's what our function is. A little girl seen what she perceived to be a firearm being stuffed in someone's backpack, and she went right over to my sergeant and said, "Sergeant, I got a problem." Reported to him. We're able to mitigate that within 30 seconds, had no issue. The firearm turned out to be a BB gun. But what's important take out of that was that little girl had no problem going right up to my officer and saying, "This is what the problem is," because she sees the different officers on their patrols on a daily basis. And the same thing works for us when we go on the street and we see the kids. It's the interaction we get. We do a lot of programs. We do a school supply program every year. We join with a couple of business folks, and we make sure our 230 kids get a suitcase full of school supplies. We do a jacket program. We found out that a lot of our residents needed help with food. We started a food pantry within the police department. We quickly realized that we didn't know how to run a food pantry. There is a lot to that, right? So we turned to our
It wasn't part of the
Share food
accreditation
program.
no, it
process.
wasn't. They didn't tell me about that. They honestly didn't.
Food program.
But we have a police chaplain group. One of the police chaplains took the lead and ran it, and it got so out of control he couldn't manage it. So we ended up partnering with Grand Stepping Up.
Oh,
So every Tuesday at around 9:30, 10 o'clock, we get a load of food. We open the doors. We put a LADTech public communication message out, and we'll have people. All that food will be gone within 2 hours.
That's great.
So they're just the things that we do that help. Coffee and donuts with the cops. Let's just talk with some of the seniors and what are their concerns. And most of their concerns are about being scanned. They have questions and concerns. Other departments are doing other things. National Night Out is also a big night out, so maybe people could write funding for that. That's a big community thing.
That's usually what we get.
You get your interactions.
and we get it from the fire companies too, because they usually jointly participate with the police departments, yeah.
But, you know, I think the important component is, you know, what works in one department isn't mandated for everybody. You gotta like change it for what your needs are. But I think if someone could write a grant and you give them a scope that you want that funding for, let them try to write within that scope and see if that meets, you know, what you're about, what your mission statement is.
Thank you. Francis, I know you have to run.
I do too.
Oh, you do too, okay. All right.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm sorry I took more than probably my speaking time.
No, that's all right.
No, that was important though.
yeah, thank you.
Accreditation really matters.
Yeah.
So.
That was
thank
great
you.
info.
Yeah.
All right. Miss Deputy Chief Gallagher.
Hello. First, thank you and welcome to have us out here. I appreciate the opportunity to come out and kind of express our needs. I guess I'll talk about, I guess, from a fire department perspective, a lot of this really helps with some of our equipment purchases. And I guess if we're talking about speaking for everyone in the county, obviously I'm a career deputy chief here in Upper Darby. I've been there for 28 years. Before that, I started off in Prospect Park as a junior firefighter in 1983. So I've been around a little bit for a while. I was there as assistant chief for 10 years before I moved on. So I kind of have a little bit of perspective of both, but I can tell you from my perspective, the big thing is it's a lot of it, the equipment costs have just skyrocketed in firefighting over the years from when I first started in '83 to what I am right now. Obviously in Upper Darby, when it comes to our budget, a lot of it's because we have, we're a combination department, we have predominantly career guys and we have volunteer. So a lot of our budget gets eaten up by salary, benefits, and things like that. But some of the things, I'll give you an example, gear cleaning. We do gear cleaning every year, and the reason we do gear cleaning is we've come to find that the firefighter cancer rates is very high with firefighters, obviously with all the fires and stuff that gets stuck to our bodies and absorbed. So we're very proactive. The NFPA standard kind of requires us to do our gear cleaning, new gear, so many years. But the gear cleaning that we do every year, which is like a deep cleaning that we send it out, that alone is $25,000 to do.
Per
year.
Per year.
for everyone.
For the career staff, that's not
Oh,
including
for the career
volunteer
staff.
staff.
Oh, not
Volunteer
any
staff
volunteer.
gets to use some of their relief association funding. So if I don't know what the number is for each station, the 5 stations. So you can imagine, I would say you probably take another 25,000, easy. So that's $50,000 for gear cleaning. New gear, we have all firefighters have 2 sets of gear, and the reason we do that is again, it's because we've really come over the years learned that a lot of the stuff that we were wearing when it was dirty, we were contaminating ourselves, our firehouses. So we really encourage guys that, hey, we have a fire. When you get back, get the stuff off, get it in the washer, pull out your spare gear. The other thing that happens too is a lot of our gear, when it gets wet from the fire or from sweating, when you go into another fire, if you have another fire right away, it leads to steam burns inside. You start to heat up and guys get steam burns. So everybody in our departments issue 2 sets of gear. So what will happen is, you can take one and clean it, but with that, you're replacing sets of gear every 5 years because the NFPA standard is every 10 years. So we're replacing 2 sets of gear. So every 5 years, a guy gets a new set. So on average, for our rotation, it's $80,000 for gear alone every year. And again, I'm only throwing the career staff numbers out at you. So the volunteers are using relief money also. So the number's even higher than that.
How much would you say per office? I mean, per
Our set of gear is
firefighter?
probably about $8,000.
8,000?
Yep.
Per.
It all depends on what you get. Like we get what we call a bailout system. So if we get caught up on the upper floor, we can hook into a window and kind of bail out. Not all fire departments do that. We're pretty fortunate. We're pretty proactive that we have that. The guys can have that. So that's an extra, maybe $1,000 for that system. So, but again, it is very expensive. It doesn't matter if you go Upper Darby, Eddystone. It's very expensive for the SCBA. Another big expenditure that we have. SCBA again is another one that's fully skyrocketed. With SCBA, some of the numbers, if you get like a full SCBA with the harness, the mask, the air cylinder, is $10,715. This is just a recent quote we got. So if you have a fire department, I'll give you an example. For Upper Darby, we have 120 air packs. The NFPA standard changes every 5 years. So what happens now with those air packs that we have 120 air packs currently. So after 3 years, what they call a 3-year cycle, which would be 15 years, the manufacturer gets to the point when they say, we're not upgrading no more. It's time for you to replace that air pack completely. So now you're talking an air pack now that costs $10,000, and Upper Darby has 120 air packs. The quote that we just recently got to replace them was $960,000. Yeah, yeah. So you can kind of see where the cost of a lot of the equipment within these fire departments, just not Upper Darby, the price has just been skyrocketing. And so like when you get into the smaller needs, you know, I guess I'll use some examples we used this year with the grant that we received. We're very big in the community risk reduction, Upper Darby, Chief Sawyer, and we do a lot of fire prevention programs. Well, what we found was our smoke machine for our trailer had broke. We need to replace that. So we used the grant money for that. We need a new generator for it because it outlived its usefulness and it wasn't working right. So we need a new generator for the trailer. So we're going to use that. Command boards, what they are, little command boards for fires you can set up and help you run the fire. We bought a couple of them. The other thing is we looked at was the washer and dryers. Again, trying to wash the gear consistently, just not once a year, but every time you use it. We're trying to get it to the point when every firehouse has a washer and dryer, so you can keep pushing guys, like, get that stuff off you. Do not cross-contaminate the firehouse. So we were looking at the grant to use for washers and dryers, and I know a lot of this stuff around the county, a lot of the other companies are also trying to make sure washers and dryers are included in every firehouse, because it's being pushed by UL, NFPA standards. Like, their studies are coming out showing you just how bad this stuff is. Some other things, the thermal imaging cameras, I know a lot of fire companies use these grants for thermal imaging cameras. They can run about $8,000, and what they are is they detect heat. So we can use them during the fire for search and rescue, or after the fire is knocked down. We can kind of scan walls and things like that, give us an idea where the fire is still located at. And those things, they last about 5 to 8 years, and after that, they start to outlive their life cycle when it's time to replace them. So, so there's some of the other issues, and the other I know Upper Darby we're looking at with some of our tech rescue equipment, technical rescue. Some of that stuff we've been using that for, replacing again, we have rescue struts we call Paratech struts. Those things can cost $8,000 for 2 or 3 of them. So there's some of the uses that we were looking at with the grant this past year. But again, the prices are all general across the board, just not in Upper Darby, it's also the other boroughs. So I think I can, kind of honestly say, these are some of the prices we're looking at. So when we say, like, as the chief mentioned, any money is very, very helpful to any of these fire companies. Especially, we're kind of lucky. I guess we're kind of the big dogs in the county. With Upper Darby, we're the biggest, fire department overall in the county. But when I go to the small, I go back to like my roots, Prospect Park, where I started there. All of a sudden, it's like, when you get these air packs, $10,000 a piece.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money for a small borough to absorb. So
Absolutely.
that are kind of some of the, I guess,
Yeah,
talking
no
points
problem.
is a need for the grants.
You're the big dog. Is there any conversation among some of the smaller departments about merging, and similar to what Keystone did out in western Chester County?
All over. I mean, compared to '83 when I started, I guess
I'm
Aston.
sorry.
If you look at Aston Township, I think they went down to pretty much one fire company. Lower Chi, they've all
Oh, yeah, I
merged
think they all
down.
merged, yeah.
Ten of them all merged down to one fire. Darby Borough all down to one fire company. So everybody's merging. And then you got a couple other smaller. I know like Glen Olden and Sharon Hill and Norwood. They've been
Talking.
throwing the idea back and forth for a few years now. So yeah, it's the consolidation factor is all over. It's Colleyville. I'm sorry, Colleyville's another one. They're probably the most recent.
So as a paid department question I have is, are you eligible for CoStar funding or CoStar discounts when you purchase your equipment?
Yes. Yeah, we bought stuff.
But I guess the boroughs aren't, the fire companies aren't.
They can.
Yeah.
But they have to go through their municipality, okay, to get it.
Yeah, because I know we did some purchasing in Prospect through.
Oh, Prospect,
Yeah.
okay, right.
Like, I know our town, like, the fire apparatus is purchased by the borough for that reason.
Oh, okay, all right.
This
Yeah.
is very
And there's a-
helpful.
And there's a lot of challenges with volunteers, right?
Yeah,
The volunteers is really
again,
down.
that's my grassroots where I grew up. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well, that's the value of merger sometimes is.
yes, it helps merging, but I'll use Colleyville as an example. A lot of times, unfortunately, once you get that merger in there, sometimes the people farther away all of a sudden just realize that this isn't worth it anymore. And
Or you might
Culture-
not
the
have that
cultural
local
clashes,
cultivation,
yeah.
and
yes,
yes, I
that's
know.
the problem. But I mean, it's the way to go. It's the way people need to be doing because these fire companies were formed back in the day when you had
Yeah.
horse-drawn apparatus, and you couldn't go that far. And that's really why, every mile had a fire company. You go out west, it's every 2 miles. with the exception of when you get into condensed areas like the cities, and then you gotta put them closer because of population
So-
and density.
So Prospect requested, and we're probably gonna give them like $2,000 for the, fire prevention and National Night Out.
Right,
So that $2,000 that they don't have to spend will help them
right.
with this,
so-
even though these are like big expenses.
Right, that's
Yeah.
kind of like what we did this year in Upward Arby. We were talking to the chief where we do so much outreach. We're going through our material left and right. And,
Right.
you know, we're always looking for those smaller grants to help us buy more prevention material and outreach programs.
Yeah, I think where we can really have impact is on that community risk reduction
Absolutely.
piece. There are things that, match our capacity to give money and have impact. You know, the idea that the best fire is the fire that never happens.
So those are things like the photo imaging cameras, you talked about a board or something?
Oh, command board, what they
Command
are is the
board.
kind of boards you can set up in the back. Because sometimes when you're at a fire, what happens is trying to maintain command and control if you're standing out there kind of by yourself where, and a lot of it's stolen from bigger cities that you've used it very well for years, where they pull out like a small kind of like a case, sets up in the stand, and now you can kind of lay out where do I have my different units, where's my different divisions and sectors that I can start to lay out, where are my personnel, so it helps me keep accountability of personnel, who's operating, where they're operating at in the fire, and it just gives them a little bit, it's a little bit more of like a small mobile desk, so to say. Instead of being sitting in an office, I can go out on the street, I can open this thing up, pull it out of the back of my command vehicle, set it up, and now I have some help laying out my fireground operation where I'm just not, like right now, it's usually a clipboard and you're trying to write everything down. All of a sudden it's, I need more room now. It's all of a sudden it's not in the room. So the command boards, again, it's kind of ideas stolen from some bigger cities that use it very effectively. And you're starting to see it more and more out here in the suburbs where they're using them and it's working very well. But again, there are a couple $1,000s for one of those command boards, believe it or not.
And are the volunteers asked to kick in money? Like, let's say I join a volunteer fire company. Am I going to be asked to kick in some money to help with my uniform and apparatus? And
If you join a fire company, usually it's the fire company's
Yeah.
going to provide you with all that.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's why the little bit advantage is they have some relief association funds they can use.
Right.
That's kind of a little bit beneficial. They get some help there, but it's still it's a big chunk of change.
And for the combination departments, it's a challenge of the municipality working with the firehouses to utilize that relief association funding.
Right.
If you're an all-volunteer company, you're used to managing relief association money on your own. But if you're a combination department, you've got to work at facilitating the cooperation between the volunteers and the career department to utilize that relief association money, which can be difficult but is worthwhile. The washers and dryers I think was really interesting because if we can improve firefighter safety, right, that also hits at a price point where we could have an impact on firefighter safety. The other thing is leverage. If a department is considering a consolidation and needs money to explore a study, that could be very valuable. Or if a department is interested in exploring, hey, how do we learn to write our own grants so that we can get bigger grants in the future, right? If we could train a Prospect Park, let's say, to better access bigger funding sources, our relatively smaller grant would be very well spent by creating the capacity in the department for them to go out and get a big grant for some of these, because the equipment ultimately is what you need.
Right.
We just don't, our organization doesn't have the money
Sure.
for $1 million squirt truck. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And moving forward for both our professions, the county's going to a new radio system. The projected amount on that radio equipment is very expensive. I think it was $4,500 for a mobile radio per unit. Now the county is getting funds for that, and the county is figuring out a distribution method once that comes to light. But maybe they could use their $2,500 to go towards funding for that. Maybe purchase a portable radio and start buying a couple each year. That might be something that would help all emergency services, emergency management, fire, and police across the board. Now, you did say you didn't get many applications. When is the deadline so I can try to get some more departments to file?
We actually got, for the first 50,000 round, we got applications very quickly. It's been this second round
It's
that's
been a
sort
slower
of,
pace.
yeah, slower pace, but we only have, I mean, we'll use all but 10,000 if we don't get
Anything
any
between
more
now and end
applications
of the
between
year,
now. And we have an idea for what we do with that 10. But certainly other departments could come in.
Yeah, because, how I was made aware of it, I think, our DA, Jack, our DA put out an
Yeah.
email.
Right.
And, it was real easy, it was a real, like, it was
Short
more of a
form.
giving than a grant, you
Yeah.
know? you just
Well,
did it.
thank you. We're glad to hear you say
It was
that.
very user-friendly.
Yes.
And there's not a lot of reporting. I mean, we trust you. You
No,
said
it's
you were,
very-
if we came back, our expectation is you'd be able to show us what you did with the money,
Right,
but
right.
there's no elaborate
Creative
report.
writing, so.
Well, thank you.
Definitely at the end of December.
And
December.
Yeah. Thank you for taking time to come out and discuss this with us. This helps inform us as we move forward.
I
Appreciate it.
appreciate
If
it.
Yeah.
if it can help moving forward, let me know.
Right.
Thank you both so much.
Can I take a picture of both of you and post it, or?
Thank you.
Sure can.
Well, we should take a picture of the two of you with Paul,
No?
if you don't mind.
I have some more, hold on.
Chairman.
Here goes. No, we tried not to get one.
You got one?
You got one?
I think, did you get Paul one?
Make sure the flag is in the picture.
Oh, yeah,
Flags in there.
slide
You go
over,
between
just
the flags.
right there, perfect.
Alright, here
Exactly
we
in
go.
front of it.
Oh, that's excellent. How many of you guys wanna take? Paul, you've been in a lot of pictures this week. Here's a couple, boy. Got 'em.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. I appreciate it.
Good luck with your accreditation. You guys are gonna do fine. Are you guys doing the consultant route or?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for comments. Appreciate it.
No, I
care.
don't
Thank you very
remember
much. Thank you.
off the top of my
Aspire, Madeline Lewis and, John String, Chris Royal.
So can I make a
Or
suggestion?
just the Rogers group. The Rogers group's the
We
other big
just
one.
Yeah.
wrap up the meeting.
Yeah.
You know,
You're both fine, fine.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
And
Thank
we're
you.
on, we're still being recorded.
That's okay.
Yeah.
This is my suggestion, that we wrap up the conversation, that we wrap up the meeting. We don't need to approve all of this.
Right.
The only thing we want to approve is the budget.
The way water bill-
In December, we want to approve the budget for the coming year. And that would be this
That was the
total
hardest
column,
hurdle to get.
which is just, and we don't even have to specify these dollar amounts. It can just say $350,000 total in grants,
Okay.
you know, and then
We'll
we
flush
can,
it out next year.
and we can keep moving through the discussion process of how we're prioritizing and dollar amounts. We don't have to make any of those decisions.
And we don't have to launch a new grant in January of next year.
Exactly,
Right.
and I won't be here in January anyway. I'm gonna be away, so.
Okay, all right.
But you're
I
gonna
know.
re-up though. You're not resigning.
Not at all. I would love to re-up, and we have to have a conversation in December about who's up for what officers.
Yeah. At our reorganization meeting in January.
Her term expires at the end of December.
I would love to be included, but you can have that conversation separately, in case you have any
Oh, is that-
reservations.
Let's
Is
counsel.
that a decision that we make or council?
Public,
Yeah.
thank you for the
Ultimately,
discussion
council does.
and we kind of shifted things around. So thank everyone for their patience. At this time, we'll open it for public comment. Seeing none, we'll proceed to authority comments. Seeing none, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Were we supposed to give him a check?
Second.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure I'm on the calendar.
We're
for
still
next
on the calendar.
December, yes, and I
Yeah,
can
Everyone
come to
understand
that.
that.
Super.
How do we make it stop?
Sean.
I think we can just walk out.
I think that's it.